Hey guys, it's Matt. In just about 1 minute will be Chapter 6 of the currently unnamed reality book. Still a lot of inquiries coming in and emails about getting the PDF copy of the book. The book is not available at all. In fact, I complete each chapter the morning of or the day before. The chapters are all written, but it's a mess. So I clean it up, and it will be pretty much done when the reading is done. But there's nothing to email or PDF anybody at this time. One final note, similar to what I said before, anybody saying, who the hell are you to present this sort of information? What do you know? You travel astrally, you got answer? Guys, I'll say it one more time. I've been doing this on YouTube for over 14 years. Now, you can imagine the thousands of people that I've come across, all different types, that have had a variety of experiences that I haven't had. I have a decent discernment on my own. But in terms of some things presented, especially coming up in this chapter, I can't say I personally have experience in these things. I haven't personally had an NDE. I don't travel out of body. But again, think in terms of me kind of being at the center of this sort of stuff for 14 years. Think of the thousands of people that have come to me via email or spoken to people on the phone, or I've met people in person saying, this is not how it works, Matt. You need to understand this. This is just thousands and tens of thousands of little bits of information. So I had to write this down because I couldn't remember it. I gather, I accumulate, then I filter the bullshit from what rings true with my inner knowing, and then I disseminate it back out to you in a way that I believe makes sense in a somewhat unique style. I had to write that down because I couldn't remember that sentence. That's what I do. Now, I have my own discernment in most of these areas, but not in all areas. So when someone says, who the hell are you? How could you know all this stuff? I don't. I have good discernment in a lot of areas. Where I don't, I've been in touch with people who do have the answer. And when it's conflicting answers, I compare and contrast, talk to others, get emails from others, put the right pieces together. Some things I'll actually get wrong, of course. But I'm just telling you, it's not all coming from me. You should run for the hills if I were to make that claim. Nobody could know all this stuff. I've disseminated out to you everything I've collected over 14 years. Chapter 6. In this book, I avoid a long discussion on the possibility of the individual called the NPC. Whether that class exists or not, to me, it's still a given that everyone here is not the same. There are different ways to interpret that. Your parents may not be, quote, as real as you are. Sorry, but there's no guarantee your kids are exactly the same as you are either. Or perhaps one child may be completely real or at a similar soul level as you, and the other may not be. If everyone in your family is what we have been calling, quote, real, their incarnation may be at a different level from yours, from the perspective of what is called higher self, like the old soul versus new soul terminology. Of course, as many of you have discovered over the past 5 years particularly, a husband and wife can be quite different incarnations. To me, all of this is just a way of saying how much more work still needs to be done. We chose to come here for a reason. Just because your father is older than you, that means nothing. That does not mean he's the greater, more advanced, or older spiritual being. Of course it doesn't mean that. I'm sure most of your family is as lost as my family. That doesn't necessarily mean they're NPCs. It's possible. I leave it on the table. But they could be just as real, but completely at a different level. They're never going to see what we see. The only takeaway here, and the only place I ask for our agreement to move forward on is, we agree, most of us, that people here are quite different. No, all men were not created equal. Real people like you, interested in these topics and in changing yourself, are likely the highest spiritual incarnation here in this place. If you really want to, and you've put in the work, you can leave this reality system behind for good at some point. Other types of entities we call minions seem like they could be doomed to remain here, at least for a while. Is Melvin P. and his ilk stuck here forever? Maybe. If not, what is their way out, which likely is very different than your way out? Tony, who I've mentioned to you many times over the years as someone who has given me tremendous insight, mostly disagrees that the minions are stuck here, forever bound to this place. He says that entities like Melvin are not doomed here, and the way he explained it made sense to me. They, people like Melvin, have put themselves into, say, a holding pattern, like planes that can't land. They simply refuse to take the risks or the leap that you have chosen to take. They likely are lower than you for several reasons, simply because they chose not to advance themselves beyond the material plane. Some say they're stuck in their role, in a sense, just as much from fear as much as pleasure-seeking. Tony called them game-addicted to this plane of existence, and they love their roles as big shots. Again, there's another side to this. Maybe they're addicted to the pleasure, yeah, sure, but also the fear of not wanting to start over, as we have. Those who have taken the greatest leap for essentially the greatest spiritual reward are people like you and me. No memory whatsoever, complete mind wipe, no recollection. Tony talks about the minion class in the role that they play here. They do have certain understanding. They always remain in that position of power, bloodlines, or potentially an understanding of past lives. Tony would describe them as playing it safe, where you and I are not playing it safe. If it's a game of limbo, they'll just put the bar down a foot and they'll easily slide underneath. It's playing it safe. Says what you and I have done, coming in here with a complete wipe, no understanding whatsoever of who we truly are, which we are discovering now. The bar is down at just 1 or 2 feet. It's hard to get under. This is the hardest spiritual journey for potentially the greatest reward. Melvin is inferior to your spiritual journey. I realize there's conflicting views on this. Again, 14 years, this is not my first rodeo. Others come out and say, no, their ilk, the Melvins and those and we saw in power, in control, and the I can't even say the word, I don't want to batter at, can't even say the word, I don't want to batter at. No, they're more advanced spiritual beings, but they're still playing a role to do the negative harvest. It's all part of the long process, the long trillion-year process. Ultimately, in the end of the day, they'd say we're all playing for the same team, all part of original source, but they're higher, much higher spiritual advanced beings actually working to create a negative polarity in this place, to create a negative harvest. And it's all the raw talks, all that stuff. I don't know if that relates to A Course in Miracles or all that. You got a 51% negative, all that stuff. I don't buy it, okay? I could be wrong. I'll leave it on the table. What Tony said here resonates with me more. That the role players, the Melvins, are role players, but they are not taking the spiritual leap we are. They are lesser advanced spiritual beings. They're more stuck here. Not that they're these higher 6D people here. I don't buy that argument. I'm well aware of it. Don't buy it. In looking at society and culture and what it's breaking down into, a bozo show or clown show, someone could use the fact that it is breaking down to a bozo show to support either side of this debate of who these minions actually are. If they're the higher level minions, way above us, some would say, well, Matt, as you've said, reality is a wake-up mechanism. The bozo show is intended for those who can see it to be able to see it. Maybe they have to deliver the bozo show contractually. It can be used to support either side. On the other side, it does appear, many times we look at it, it appears like a desperate group trying to hold on. The clown show gets worse and worse, yet they stalled century. Ridiculous objectives and presentations, like a desperate group trying to hold on. Others would say, yeah, it's supposed to look like that, Matt. It's all by design. Doesn't make them lesser beings. Okay, you understand my take. Your take might be different. At the end of the day, guess what? This is fun. This is a really fun conversation. What Melvin is or what this minion is or what the queen was, it doesn't matter. It's all your personal journey. It all comes back to worry about yourself. Matt, shouldn't we put the pickup truck army together and go protest it, and we can fix the part of government that's broken and the ills of society? If we work hard enough, we can correct it, and then we can all hug and sing Kumbaya. Shouldn't we be doing that? No, I can assure you that's exactly what it wants. A false grail quest outside yourself. Go do exactly what it wants if you want. Worry about yourself is not selfish. It's exactly what we're here to do. Someone may ask, What about the hundreds of millions of atheists who believe they're nothing more than worm food after death? Well, there are several possibilities that may explain the people who believe that. First, why do we assume that we are all in the same boat at the moment of death? Think about it. Why does one size fit all? One spiritual size fit all? This isn't spiritual stretch pants, man. Think about how small people's thinking has been in this regard in the past. Every single time we've ever heard an after-death discussion, there's never a mention that what happens at death may depend on differences in the individual. Because everyone seems the same to our limited senses, then of course we all must be in the same situation at death. Why? Of course, I'll keep on the table other possibilities. A few chapters back, we examined the small thinking around the comparison of what we were before birth versus what will happen to us at death, with the former not carrying the same weight. Almost nobody considers what they were before birth. It's all like, well, what will be the moment of death like? They should have equal weight to me, not 99 point whatever to almost zero. Now we have yet another limited perception to add to our long list, the notion that one size at death must fit all. This entire life is about choice and options, right? From what flavor ice cream you want to what flavor man. This earthly life brings with it all of these personal and identity choices, right down to cheesesteak with or cheesesteak without. But at the moment of death, the exact same thing just must apply to all of us the same. Why? I think demonstrating that people on earth are different is pretty easy to do. Just turn on your television and spend 5 minutes watching TV shows like Entertainment Tonight and TMZ. Examine Melvin, Kanye West, Larry Silverfish, Madonna, creeps like Katy Perry. What are these things? We know that all, quote, men are not created equal, at least spiritually. Maybe those who believe in atheism are actually correct about themselves. Maybe the atheist is similar to the concept of the NPC, and the atheist has no spiritual road out of here like you do. Maybe they, in fact, are a body with a soul that is animated locally and are actually bound to the dirt like they believe they are, with their soul returning to the local well from which it came. I personally believe that every body here, even animal bodies, needs something to animate and start the car. That is what we call soul. That is not the same as spirit. A squirrel may have a soul. If you just put it all together on a 3D printer, blood, muscle, cholesterol, it doesn't work. You need something that animates it. That animation from soul, if for people that believe in the NPC, potentially comes locally, not from the spiritual place where you come from. We all sense, I assure you, everybody listening to this, we all agree, this universe, this Carl Sagan presentation is not all there is. The more vast they make it appear, the universe is almost infinite. This is everything. No, science is a deception. That means this is next to nothing. And this universe is a joke compared to all that there is. Again, maybe the atheist is correct, but his correct prediction only applies to himself. He tries then to put his lame-ass shit on you and me when it doesn't apply to us. The next step after this life for you versus the MSNBC watching atheist may be two completely different things. I found atheists overall, especially when you have a spiritual discussion with them, to be very angry, pissed off people. They wouldn't take too well to the conversation that says, Susan the atheist here. Susie, come over here. What would you want? Come over here. You're an atheist. Yeah, I'm an atheist here. See, Susie, you got it wrong, though. What you're saying applies to you only. You are worm food, but I'm not. But they hate that shit. They loathe Christians. They hate any sort of a spiritual conversation, and they literally sometimes get almost verbally violent for some reason. Now, we'll ponder that in another video, why they act the way they do. But, posing that conversation that we're in two completely different boats potentially with the atheist, suggesting that to them, that could cause a damn fist fight. I'd get angry too if I was nothing more than worm food, but I'm not being mean. That's what they say about themselves. Of course, the atheist would say that we've just made up a delusion because we don't want to face the facts that they're confident facing. No, that's not it, I assure you. If society has trained us over the course of our lives to believe that one size at death fits all, then I'm inclined to believe that's a deception. Why? Because almost everything society puts forth is a deception, and the rule of opposites almost always applies? If everyone in history has discussed death as one size fits all, then I'm very confident there are many other sizes of blue jeans. That's the way this reality works. Quote, modern man of today has nothing figured out. So to our advantage, we can take what he or she believes and cross that off the list. They probably wouldn't take too kindly to that. It's not very flattering, but it's true. Say, a modern man and woman, what do you believe? I believe this. Oh, great. Now I can cross that off the list because I know you're always wrong. It's kind of like that Sherlock Holmes thing about eliminating the impossible. Well, we can eliminate what the guy with the egg sandwich believes. We know that's not it. The man on the street can't possibly be right about anything important. So that can help us narrow things down and bring other possibilities to the forefront by moving away from what they believe. Atheism might not just be for the NPC if that class exists. It's likely real people have been fooled into the atheist position. We shouldn't be surprised. The entire reality is out to trick a real person as much as possible throughout their entire lifetime. That would be unfortunate, though, for real people to follow the atheist, because it could facilitate an outcome that may manifest at death. I don't know for sure, and I can't say how that would work, but it can't be eliminated either. And for something so big, what happens to us at the moment of death, I can't take any chances and assume that my personal beliefs as a reality creator don't have a factor, even moving into the moment of death. An NPC, if that entity exists, may have no choice in what awaits them when their number is called at the deli counter. But real people may manifest on themselves what they expect to experience at death. Why is that so hard to fathom for some people? We know for sure that this world works that way. Why do you think they, the creeps, try so hard to shape our perceptions? So those who see that the collective conscious of real people shapes this reality here, they just know for sure that can't possibly be the case. That can't be a factor moving through the moment of death. As above, so below, right? For example, if you believe in reincarnation, you may be serving that dish to yourself, cold, like revenge. If you expect 72 virgins after doing blank, blank, and blank that I can't talk about here related to the teism, well, you may get that. Wait, if that sounds exciting to you, I've heard it gets real old around day 8. What do you do then for the next trillion years with these 72 versions? It's been, say, 2 weeks, and they're already a bunch of bitchy malcontents. You don't pay any attention to me. Take the trash out. You're giving her a favor over me. What do the other 70 do? The man can only take maybe 2 into his bed at the same damn time. 72 versions. If at the moment of death, somebody asks me, would you like the 72 versions? I say, hell no. Leave me alone. I don't want that shit. And how lame is it to expect that your same body with the same hard-on is carried through into the afterlife? Will your hemorrhoids be carried through too with the hard-on? How about the BO and the awful halitosis? Is that carried through the moment of death if the hard-on is? Come on, man. I can't speak for you, but considering how screwed up the world has become, the goal of real people should probably be to, quote, get out of here once and for all and not come back. Those who choose to or have to come back again will someday see Chelsea Clinton's 2-headed daughter on a throne, residing over a one-world religion. A child's first communion has now been replaced by something called a whitewater baptism. Most atheists closely align themselves with science, and we know what a mistake that is. We know that science is a major pillar of the reality ruse and is a massive tool used to propagate the master deception. No real person with a clue would ever look to science for important answers about their existence. That's like looking to Ellen for beauty secrets. I'm a believer in the rule of opposites that we've been discussing for a long time now. If science says that this universe is so incredibly vast that it could even be infinite, then I believe the opposite is true, that this universe is actually very small from the perspective of your spiritual self looking in, like you picking up a plastic snow globe in the mall. Whether it be classified as spirit or soul, why must the entirety of us be confined to a fleshy body? Why is it so crazy to say that a part of us could be somewhere else? It just must be that way because our limited brains here can't comprehend anything else? Don't ever rely on the brain for big answers. Instead, look to the heart and inner knowing. Let the brain, the ego, and logic assist, but keep them out of the driver's seat on matters of the heart. So the prevailing notion is that all parts of you, even your soul, is confined to the flesh, or some say in very close proximity with the body. Why? When you play a video game, are you inside your TV or computer? Is the play-by-play baseball announcer doing the game a little man actually living inside your radio? No, he's somewhere else, halfway around the world. It makes far more sense that the brain is a receiver for consciousness that, at least partially, comes from outside the body and from somewhere else. The best video games are called first person. Third-person perspective in a video game is not as real of an experience. Your eyes, EYES, or also the letter I, absorb the world from between your temples. These phonetics, which I believe you can call a homophone, if that's not offensive and is inclusive enough, it's not a coincidence. This is all over the English language. I can't speak to Latin or Spanish or French or anything else, but I'm sure it exists there as well. It's all intentional, by design. Language we'll talk more about later. It is the spellcraft of reality itself. When you logically think in the brain, it has to seem like it's originating from between the ears or between the temples, or this earth experience doesn't work. It must seem real, and along the same lines, the mystery of death must be maintained. If it felt like a video game, people wouldn't play. If you were 100% confident in your afterlife and know exactly what would happen, you wouldn't play. Look to your inner knowing to find this answer. Right now, imagine in detail a brain of mush laying on a table, say. Do you think that spongy thing floating in the jar can produce all of what you call consciousness? Is that ugly pile of cholesterol solely responsible for generating passionate feelings and emotions, love? Is that where the bad jokes in this presentation are coming from? Also, does it make sense that the impossible complexity of dreams comes from that ugly gray thing floating in the jar? I've noticed details in dreams that would be impossible if, for example, I was just asked to think about the same scenario or setting or object right now while I was awake. Part of the modern scientific ruse is to give all the credit to the brain itself. Is that the only part of you reading this now? The mashed potatoes in your skull? That's absurd to me. I think many parts of the brain certainly are responsible for all the stuff that needs to take place inside the body, like heartbeats, the rate of breathing, fingernail growth, 1,000 other bodily processes. It certainly may be a big part of consciousness, but to say it's solely responsible, well, no way. The frontal lobes of the brain that thinks in English or any other language, to me, is likely a receptor of some kind to interface with the spiritual part of you that's not here, or potentially, if you don't want to go that far, to interface with something that generates consciousness that isn't necessarily in the body or between the ears. To me, Elon Musk's and Ray Kurzweil's brain chip is not being constructed to make you smarter. That's how they'll sell it, of course, along with the convenience of speedy checkouts and expedited concierge. To me, the brain chip that they say they're working on could potentially terminate the link between the brain and the origin of consciousness itself in the spiritual realm. The Chat GPT will have studied a person's personality for years, and it has read every single email ever sent. Something like a large language model may take over mimicking the personality of the person, just like it can mimic today the writing style of Walt Whitman if you ask it to write an autobiography of Larry Flynt. Of course, the brain chip will someday be posited as a wondrous leap forward for the human. The system will seek out Geordie Rose from his opium den and ask that he unveil the first recipient of the brain chip to the world in another TED Talk. The first woman to have received the severance procedure will walk out onto the stage to thunderous applause from the zombies. Being interviewed by both Elon Musk and Geordie on stage, she'll recite the first 5 pages of Homer's Iliad to perfection from the download she's accessing through the Chat GPT, linking up to her brain chip. All the while, the chip could be masking real consciousness from spiritual self and may be decapitating that side of the Vitruvian man's arm like that arm being placed through a spiritual guillotine. Is this another possible meaning of the Harry Potter Horcrux? Cutting oneself off? Separating the soul? Maybe. Going away from the book, it is scary to play this out, but it's not scary because are you going to get a brain chip? Am I? Of course not. We'll never have the brain chip. But it is a little scary to think about. So let's just say that it does separate the real consciousness coming into the brain from somewhere else, what you could call the spiritual realm. We don't know. But all of a sudden, this is consciousness from somewhere else, your spiritual higher self. All of a sudden, it's like duct tape over the mouth. Like saying, I can't talk. Duct tape over the mouth. The spiritual self has been cut off. No access to maybe a little part, maybe the Horcrux, a little part of them that was sent into the material realm. They've been cut off. All of a sudden, the flashing lights go off in the control center for your spiritual self and higher self. What's the matter? We have no access to, we've been cut off from our little pieces that we put down in that thing called Earth. They took a brain chip. We're cut off. What do we do? I don't know. If anybody's trying to yell at me now, I can actually hear you. You say, Matt, it seems like this, what you describe, is what's happening to people now. And as far as we know, they haven't put a chip in their head. So why are they acting that way? I agree. In some way, they are getting a download right now. Now, this isn't dark. It's fascinating. You know why it's fascinating to us? Because we don't have to worry about it. You're immune to it. I'm immune to it. Or you wouldn't be here right now, like Dante going to Quickie Stop. You wouldn't be here. We're immune to it. So there's nothing to worry about. What's the first thing that happened in Total Recall, the movie, after Douglas Quaid, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Quaid, start the reactor. What's the first damn thing he did when he woke up to his predicament? He was told to wrap a wet towel around his head to block the GPS-type tracker in his head. He had the Elon Musk brain chip. The people in this world should hope that Elon's chip, though Ray's chip, is not like that big fat ball that Arnold had to pull out of his nose. Funny, in that movie, Arnold was giving advice to himself on how to remove the chip. We'll talk about that sometime. The two aspects of oneself. Which one was real, one was hidden. There seems to be a tug of war going on between the parts of us that are linked to the material plane, like the ego and the brain, and the spiritual side of us. Again, the brain chip could end that tug of war. Hopefully that will never happen. No need to ponder it more here. Let's back up to where we were. I remind you that this experience of living life has to be structured in a way so it's fully believed in. Nobody takes a video game seriously because they know they're not in the game and there are no consequences to the player. The spiritual side, to a degree, must remain somewhat hidden for this reality experience to work for people. The dark reality certainly is here to block that side, to block the spiritual side, favoring the other. The debate is, though, has the dark reality gone too far? Or is it operating inside the parameters by which it was designed, by whoever created this place originally? It seems the dark reality has exploited the necessary game characteristic of, quote, spiritual amnesia, and has hidden us effectively as it has in order to benefit itself in some way, possibly moving beyond its original mandate, or if you prefer, potentially in breach of contract. Basically, it's doing its job too well. Up to and including the day in 2001, it's been a worthy adversary. Up to that point, it was very worthy. Everything was very believable. Today, not so much. Today, it's a friggin' bozo show. The last 20 years has been like living in the twilight zone for people like us who can see. Its capabilities year by year grow in controlling the masses, but at the same time, its grip on us gets far worse. So it's like, is our wake-up some sort of inverse correlation with the opposite process happening to the masses? See what I'm saying? The worse that it gets for them, the better it seems to get for us. Are the masses put to sleep, in a sense, by us waking up, or vice versa? Look, I don't know exactly. It's all fun stuff to ponder. But the graphing of both lines is too perfect. Graph how stupid the man on the street is getting, and then graph our wake-up. See how the process is similar? It's related somehow, but we'll ponder it some other time. Again, doesn't matter. Worry about your self-journey. This Earth-universe experience is likely just a small puzzle piece inside something far more massive. I don't know what goes on outside of this snow globe. All of existence is a big place to comprehend. So all I can do is attempt to understand this earth experience and see the purpose of it for my spiritual whole. Said in another way, all I can do in life is figure out how to use this place properly. Our adversary has the very opposite role here, to block us from using this place properly. Once again, it's very simple. If we can overcome our adversary, we can begin to use life for what it's supposed to be used for. In my opinion, succumbing to the trick prevents our ability to use this life properly. Others, like Tony, who I mentioned, may disagree and say that our higher selves can learn from all the different types of incarnations that are possible, from a stockbroker to a Sopranos hitman. He would say potentially, not everyone has to spiritually wake up for us to benefit the higher self and to benefit from the incarnation itself. That's distasteful to me, concerning, but I can't pretend it's not true. I don't like considering that possibility, but I won't throw it off the table either. I don't want to accept that the incarnation, say, of Vince McMahon serves a higher self to the same degree as, say, my lifetime serves mine. That may be true. Who knows? I think Tony would say that all that matters is that you are true to what your role should be in this existence, figuring out what your role is. The true path may not be, of course, one size fits all, may not be waking up for everybody. The challenge is discovering what your path is and then doing it. Boy, our adversary loves to block that, doesn't it? This Earth lifetime is likely just one Donkey Kong game inside an arcade, inside a city of arcades, inside a country of arcades, inside a sea of arcades. This society teaches real people to lie down in front of the rolling barrels to get crushed here, at least spiritually. You and I are the few who will get up and jump the barrels and then get out of the game for good someday. Jeff Bezos is the gorilla rolling the barrels at us in the Donkey Kong game. Now, when I say get out of the game or get out of here, it likely requires a bit of effort and intention, in my opinion. I must assume that I actually have to accomplish something in life and won't just assume I'm an automatic winner. The no consequences people perhaps take this a bit too far and assume they're winners no matter what they do. I hope that's the case for real people, but I won't err on that side. I don't think my adversary is working so hard for no reason. To me, Vince McMahon of the WWE wrestling, if real and not a minion class, if the same type of incarnation as you, for example, it's unlikely, but let's just go with it. If he is real, he's fooled, as most people are fooled, into playing its game of deception. I don't believe our incarnations, Vince McMahon and myself, our incarnations are on equal standing. If we both serve a higher self, if you see what I mean. Tony did use the term higher self, by the way, applying it to the minion class, even Melvin. But it was like a different type of higher self, a different type of relationship in that their incarnation there is not the same as ours. Melvin is not the same as we are. Talking about this experience as an arcade inside a city of arcades, many of us and smart people have talked about the fact that we're in a multi-layer situation or fractal of some kind. For an eternal being, though, time is no object. There's no hourglass of sand falling at the highest level that we have to be concerned about. There's no Final Jeopardy music playing. Time is a construct of this place and is needed in the material worlds, so movement can be observed and physicality can be allowed to play out. If there are many layers to reality that, quote, seem to take a long time to move through, again, time associated with that may be inconsequential to a being like yourself. Time is likely only a necessity in a material plane to make this world believable by creating urgency through the God of this world, which is change. Change is observed through time, creates urgency, creates a feeling of mortality. We'll talk about it some other time. A reality that may be a fractal or multi-layered is a repeating theme in movies and in media. Whether you believe it's a truth drop or it just came out by random or it might have been channeled by the writer, it happens over and over. You have the movie Inception with the concept of a dream inside a dream inside a dream. Down to Animal House, the stoner talk with Pinto and Donald Sutherland. Then One tiny atom in my fingernail could be one little tiny solar system. Can I buy some pot from you? All we can control is this life. So if you're not McLovin' this place, eliminate the distractions and do what you are called to do here, but make sure you're listening to the right voice, not the siren song to crash your ass on the rocks. If you're playing a false role of Vince McMahon in our example, which we presented both ways, he could actually be serving his higher self. I don't want to leave that on the table, but I have to. Most roles in this place played by real people, if they're real, not minions or another type of incarnation, are false roles. Look at your brother, your sister, your cousins, your friends, most people. It's not just the height of celebrity like Vince McMahon if he was a real person. Why you keep choosing this example, I don't know. I started writing about it. What's the difference? Most roles in this world are false roles. The idea is to eliminate the false role, which is similar to a Jacob Marley chain, and walk the correct path. It seems very apparent at this point that there are other classes of spiritual entities here on Earth. If some people are different from you and I, though, that doesn't necessarily mean they must be minions of the system. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be lower forms like NPCs. We just acknowledge there's different entities here. That's a given from my perspective. A spouse, for example, who doesn't want to engage in anything that you research may be the same spiritual entity that you are, but they're simply at a different level. It still may be a little bit different incarnation. They're simply not ready to take the next step, and you are ready to take the next step. It could be as simple as their higher self will not allow them to see what you see. You can imagine the emails that I've received over the last few years outlining the bizarre behavior of spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends, especially since 2020, as you can imagine. I've heard almost everything under the sun in this regard. People, I believe my spouse now is not real and all this stuff. Spouses have even become angry. So there's a person, say, subscribing, listening to the sound of the words that are coming out of my mouth. And the spouse comes into the room. Would you like crimpets? And then the spouse gets angry, like, are you listening to Matt? They get angry, like verbally violent. I mean, because of my voice coming through a speaker. Not that son of a beach. I mean, they act crazy. I heard it all. It doesn't mean they're an NPC. They might be, but it doesn't mean that. You shouldn't lose respect for them. Higher self may be saying, get that incarnation of ours away from this guy, Matt. We're not ready to hear what he has to say. We have way more work to do. Who created this arrangement between husband and wife anyway? Yeah, the husband's ready to graduate, but the wife maybe has a lot more, vice versa, has a lot more work to do. The higher self doesn't let them hear anything that could potentially, skip a step, because all steps have to be taken. Nothing can be skipped. Many would say the higher self is protecting that person. Okay, you understand the point. I mean, there's some bad news possible here too. What is it? I married the mob. I married a minion. Some people are married to minions, more direct minions, maybe a different type of incarnation, maybe closer to Melvin. Sorry. Maybe the NPC type does exist. So they're not going to ever like what I have to say. Any sort of truth research, not just me, or any truth research you do, they're going to reject. Every time I've ever tried to talk to Pam was my girlfriend 20 years ago for about 2 months. Other than that, we've been friends. Every time I've tried to tell her about anything, the Mandela effect, it's always the same script. It's, Matt, what does that do for me? In the morning, I still got to get up and go to work. It doesn't change my life. They just run the same scripts. Let it go. I hope the best for Pam. I don't know what she is, but, it's fine. It's fine. See the best in them. Their journey is not our journey. It's fine. I've had conversations with people, they literally cover their ears and basically run out of the room. Now, I didn't like it at the time. I still don't like it, but I didn't accept it. It made me angry. I'm much more understanding of what's happening today and much more accepting of it. If you have one of these spouses, we all have these relationships, it's your job to focus on what you love in them and love about them. Not to bring up these topics in front of them or to force any of this stuff on people. Now, we made those mistakes in the past. We won't make them anymore. We understand now the differences or what's going on. We can't be sure of what they are, but it's best to think they're just as real as you, but simply not ready. Our type has to be the bigger person. There's no meeting these people in the middle. That's not possible. You and I have to go the whole way. They won't. You and I have to put in the 100%. They're not capable of it. The moment we accept that, the better the relationships will get across the board. In general, the closer people are to this reality system, the more they cozy up to it, the more these creeps seem like important people offering invaluable contributions. The more to these people it seems like the creeps deserve a voice and they should deserve respect. I mean, that's a joke to us, but most people we know covet their fame and celebrity, of course. The few of us who can see the role they're playing, they have no appeal anymore from these sorts of John Travoltas. Most people in this world are in love with the popular reality presenters, as I call them. For example, my cousin and my uncle both, his father, bow down to Elon Musk. They would say that the only reason Jesus walked on water was potentially because Musk was underneath the water, holding Jesus up. Would they go that far? Maybe. They both actually got on a year-long waiting list to buy a Tesla car. It was just so, they just had to be a part of the whole Elon Musk thing. It took over a year for that piece of shit to get delivered. I got a ride in it. So, Matt, you want to go for a ride? I was thinking, no, I don't want to go for a ride, but you got to do that for people, right? I'd go for a damn ride. Now, other than the acceleration in the Tesla being incredible, which is a feature in all electric cars, the acceleration is off the charts. Other than that, I wasn't impressed. I tried to fake it to make it, fake it to rave about it the best I could, but they could see that I basically didn't really love it. It's like they expected me to wet my pants while being driven around the neighborhood. My cousin believes every bit of the Elon Musk story and thinks he's the CEO of 5 global companies while replacing NASA in his spare time. He doesn't understand that if anything were real in this world, Musk wouldn't have the time to do more than one of those odd jobs. Actually, Musk doesn't seem intelligent enough to run a used bookstore. But my cousin thinks it's completely normal that after Musk is spending 85 hours a week managing 5 mega companies, he then has the time to buy and manage Twitter. He's not the CEO of Twitter. He's a twit of a CEO. And on top of that, 4 or 5 interviews a week, right? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Cousin thinks that's just normal too. The fanboys in support of their god, Elon, vomit up words like delegation to justify the lunacy. Like all Elon has to do is waltz into a meeting once a month with his latte, grace the engineers in the meeting of that particular company with his genius ideas, and his minions will execute his divine vision to perfection. Why things are so absurd to us, while our friends and family lap them up like a camel with a salt lick, is our greatest frustration. We'll talk about the human download a bit later. But Matt, Bill Gates and Elon Musk are billionaires, and my house was just foreclosed on. Gates is a big shot, and I'm a loser. Must I remind you about the rules of this place? Remember the inverse and ask backward axioms? You are a greater being where it counts. It's possible Melvin may never be able to get to your level. And I don't mean in this life not be able to get to your level. I mean possibly ever get there, like in trillions of years. In the sea of arcades outside of this tiny place, having money or status here doesn't mean shit. Being spiritually rich and having done the work here is all that matters. This is why society teaches us that money is so important and spirituality is not important. The principle of opposites gives the reality away every single time. In all areas of importance, society teaches the opposite of what is true. We're shown that the billionaires of this world are on top, and that makes you feel like a cisgendered slug. Society is structured to demoralize us and bring forth learned helplessness and hopelessness. This fosters compliant, uninspired people who are easily defeated. Gates would likely burn all his money and clean public restrooms and blank, blank, blank. I wrote about that. I can't even read. To do this or that, to be like you. To be the type of entity that you are now. He may be willing to do that. I couldn't even talk about it. It was that low. People like Tony believe that he can someday, Melvin can someday get there. But look at all he would have to give up to start his journey. This being said, if you've been ruined, that doesn't necessarily mean you've won either. but it probably means you're a few trillion times further along than Melvin and his ilk. If these beings have amassed money, prestige, status, and influence on Earth, well, who cares about that? That isn't to be coveted. That is shit. You're a greater being in the only area that matters. I'm not just presenting this rule, something I made up or pulled out of my ass to make you and I feel good. Like I'm angry and delusional at the same time, knowing deep down that we're really losers. It's not that at all. I know that's what Larry Silverfish and his minions would respond back to us with. Larry would say, "Isn't that convenient that you little proletariat pond scum have come up with a nice little story to make yourselves feel important? You convince yourselves that you're better than me. You think you're better than me. But like was said in the movie Cold Mountain, repeating a thing don't improve it. You think that upon your deaths, you'll become Marty to my waxing Biff. What a nice little delusion you've created inside your great unwashed community to make your pathetic lives a tiny bit more meaningful so you can grind out another day. Believe this quantum of conscience loon if you want to. I'm the one that owns the WTC Center and WTC1, not his broke ass." Well, Larry, that was a good speech, but sorry, Larry, you helped perpetuate the biggest fraud of all time. Larry, you're a spiritual flunky. I wouldn't give a squirt of piss for your ass right now. Yes, Larry, we are better than you. Larry, thou art a villain. But I understand that was the role that was designed for you, and you're just doing the role you was given. A reality of opposites, inversion, and refraction. Remember the old commercial from the early 90s? Like Mike, I want to be like Mike. I don't know if it was McDonald's, I don't know if it was Gatorade, whatever. It's a reality of inversion, opposites, and refraction. That means Mike wants to be like you. Like Mike, no, he wants to be like you. Now, Mike is a real creepy feel about Mike. I don't know if he's a real person that went way under the dragon's wing or he's a true minion. But he's it doesn't matter all the money he has now, whatever, he'd trade it to be like you. I'm not joking. I'm not saying you and I are greater than these billionaires and their ilk to stroke our ego. I'm not saying these things so you can walk around the mall feeling like a big shot, knowing you're better than the others who may be NPCs or minions in the same mall. Never be arrogant. When I run down the minions in this book, I'm just having fun. And after learning these lessons, we have to stop being so mean. I'm not joking now, I'm being serious. We must have a certain understanding in order to move forward, in order to properly do the self-work. Because this, quote, understanding of who we really are is the best news of all time, it comes with a tiny bit of superiority complex, which must be kept in check and then later removed by us. Don't let our confidence become arrogance. Always choose kindness, even to Larry. Yeah, even to Larry. To fully graduate, you must understand who you really are, and that makes entities like Warren Buffett look really, really bad. However, understanding the trick and who you really are is only the first part. To do the second part, the spiritual work we'll talk about later, you must have a certain confidence when you set out to do it. It's possible that Larry Silverfish may not even be able to comprehend who you are spiritually. Ask your inner tuning fork. Who am I compared to, say, pick one, the Nancy Pelosi monster? I'll wait for your reply. Comparing people like you and me to any of these sorts of minions, from George Soros to Bill Clinton, they come up short every single time. We're not just saying that to make ourselves feel good. They're not the same as you and I are. Your inner knowing always senses what the correct answer is. Some people believe that these creeps are a reflection of ourselves and wouldn't even exist without us. Others believe they have equal standing, but this role is necessary. The role they play in this place has to be played the way they play it at this particular time or the game doesn't work. The entire outer ring of reality or screen is a reflection of the collective consciousness because our heart-centered reality bubbles power everything here. Although we're sure that we, as a whole, influence reality, we don't know if the creeps can stand alone without us, or we assist in making them what they are. Maybe a bit of both. We all sense the more we call them controllers, elite, and all these dumb terms, the more they get something from that, from our show of respect. They also benefit when we are put in fear. Who knows exactly what harvests this energy or loosh? But fear, stress, anxiety, worry, everything the society wants to put us into, something gets something out of that. It's food, it's sustenance. Again, we know it exists. We don't know exactly how it works. So all this fear talk across all of YouTube, BitChute, Brighteon, Odyssey, Talk of the Harvest, Armageddon, pole shifts, Nibiru, plasma shifts, what a bunch of bull all that is to put us into a state of fear, something that something is feeding from. Yeah, collectively, real people are likely the engine that powers the entire reality. Not Larry, us. If we see this, it would be naive or even dangerous to think this power cannot extend in and through the moment of death. For example, there are two big religions on earth that teach people that they'll be coming back to reincarnate maybe thousands of more times. Now, billions of people fully believe in these concepts. To me, expecting you'll be recycled back is very harmful because you could manifest that reality on yourself. Here, all is mind. You are the key ingredient that makes reality work. I must assume this power extends into death as well. Why wouldn't we assume that? Because some lesser being, an NPC or minion, believes that sort of big thinking is nuts? If, as a Buddhist, you believe at the moment of death that you're coming back, or you've been taught that you have really no choice but to enter the 40-day Bardos period, and you've heard over and over and over and over and over again, you enter the Bardos, like 99 whatever percent, you're coming back. You know the way you lived your life. You know you didn't really you really reach no Bodhisattva level. You've just manifested that horror show on yourself. Maybe. A billion Hindus also believe in reincarnation. The phrase, quote, "be careful what you wish for," to me, is really no different than, quote, "be careful what you expect as you move through the moment of death." The original phrase has been carried through time for a reason. Be careful what you wish for. It's a stuffed Lenin because it has tremendous meaning beyond the surface level. Very important note and sidebar conversation here. Because we've all recognized that calling them names of praise or controllers, elite, Illuma, I can't even say the damn name. I don't want no banner ad. It's somehow feeding them what they want or putting them up on a pedestal. So what I've done is I've erred on the other side. I call derogatory names. I shouldn't. That's what we're going to talk about now. Derogatory names. I continue to call them creeps, and I will continue, but eventually I'll find another word and stop being so small, so mean in this regard. As one gets close to the big win and spiritual graduation, sorry, I don't have a better word right now, people see that the derogative terminology that I've been using is wrong. I don't mean incorrect wrong. I mean wrong of me to be using it, to stoop down to their level, for example. We should not belittle anything, especially if we're walking the superior path. I know you've heard me say thousands of times over the years, creeps, assholes, minions, Nancy Pelosi monsters. How about this old term of nostalgia? Remember the George Bush creatures? Oh, you've heard it all from me. I understand, though, that the highest level of spiritual actualization would have empathy for all creatures. It would never hate any group or use such terms of malice. Now, I know this is touchy-feely, love child bullshit. Okay, it sounds that way to many of you, but this is the necessary next step, I assure you. You want to just keep hating? We'll go over to BitChute. We'll hate forever. Is that what you want? I know it's touchy-feely bullshit what this sounds like, but I have to get this out. It's important. I know you want to throw up. Blech! The trolls will take this and my words will be twisted. Matt, look, he's revealing his true nature. He loves the minions. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Go ahead, twist my words. Deep down, you know I'm right. If you're at a certain level and you're ready to advance, you know I'm right. Even Tony says, look, they're just playing it safe, these creeps. They're in a holding pattern. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that Melvin can someday get to where we are. But I have to acknowledge, and my inner knowing says, well, I think Tony's right. They've made the choice to play it safe. Who knows how long it would take to get to we are, but they're not doomed here. They're simply game addicted. When Tony told me about this, it immediately resonated. If you're at a certain level, you're going to know I'm right about this, as touchy-feely as it sounds. Okay, this is what those in the superior position would do. For example, there's a bunch of anthills behind my house. Do I feel the need to run out there? Would you and I feel superior over to ants on an anthill? Just a little bit. Do I run out there and try to belittle them? Try to put them down? Try to put down one-legged moths as they fly around my yard? Is that what we feel then? See Melvin as a one-legged moth. There's no reason to hate, okay? If anything, pity. Let the hate go. This is part of the necessary work in this life. If we had 100% confidence that all we're putting forth about the timeless spiritual nature of who we are, if we're confident in it now, but if we had 100% confidence and we glimpsed it, we would never belittle any of these groups of minions with names. We just wouldn't stoop that low. We would be in such a position of superiority, which I believe we're in now. But again, we don't have all revealed. The mystery of death will likely always remain for me until I die. I don't like this phrase where you say, Matt, it's not belief, it's no. No, we'll never know for sure. That's the whole point of going through this whole reality system. Matt, it's knowing. No, it's not. No, it's not. We'll never know for sure. That's kind of the point of playing this whole game. There's many things we'll never know for sure. In the end, we feel, though, we're all connected in some way to original creation. Matt, this is more touchy-feely shit. Ugh! I'm almost done. Go ahead. Throw up if you want to. I'm not becoming a love child. I'm simply trying to soften my caustic position that it's been hurting myself over the years. Of course it has. I'm sorry to tell you that touchy-feely shit is the next step. What I'm saying is so easily revealed if you just take a step back and realize and see what most of the truth community does. The first grade truthers always pick on BitChute. We'll go over to BitChute. This is going to kill us. Pole shift, fear. Oh, look at this secret society. Look at this dark thing. Dark, negative, anger, fear. Is that really, when you get to a certain level, is that really what life is all about? Or maybe that was necessary for us and we've advanced through it. This book is my final, potentially highest understanding of how this reality works, using my own observations and discernment over 14 years, but also working with hundreds of people that in many cases know more than I do about their particular area of expertise, who have helped me. Okay, we all did the first grade truther stuff, but I am done with it. Of course, this book, as we get into, say, this chapter, it's going to start to weed out certain people. Not everybody's going to continue on the boat. Many people are not going to be ready to truly give up the hate and the fear. And you know what I would say about that? Because you're not ready to take responsibility yourself. Hating, so the secret societies are doing it, and the Trilateral Commission's doing it. That's blaming something or someone else. I understand that's the role. I will continue. I'm not going to call them names of praise going forward. I will continue to use creeps a lot. And there's a classroom here with all different types. I'm going to continue to use creeps. I'm just telling you that where we need to start going. Okay, we need to get out of the traps of hate and fear that were laid for us a long time ago. I couldn't have said this too early on in the book. I would have lost most people. I doubt it would have gone over well. The first page, I'm advising everybody to be kind to your local Larry Silverstein, for a duck may be somebody's mother. He's got $1 billion, but give that good man a penny more and a kiss. Now, I'm not saying that now either. I still have not exercised it all out. I want to put them all in a dunk tank, put them into a dunk tank of slime. I do, but I can see that's not the way. I'm trying to become bigger myself. And how do you think that's done? By continuing to hate? Many people that are not ready to continue with us will warp this into whatever they want to hear. So if Matt no longer sees that it's a good idea to just hate them, then they'll say, that's New Age. That's if you don't hate, then that's New Age. That's a New Age love child. You warp it into whatever you want, okay? I am doing my best to no longer hate any group because I'm in the superior position. Call me delusional if you want. They are necessary role players in a reality designed to wake me up so I can benefit the whole of me spiritually. I'm not 100% there yet, like I said. I have a lot of work to do. The back part of this book is about doing the work. This is the start of the work. Give up the fear channels. Give up the hate. Give up the chase of conspiracy itself. One thing I'm sure about, the hate is the energy it wants from all of us. Don't fall for it any longer. I'm dedicated to doing better. The work starts now. Of course, how creepy they are will always be fascinating to me. I mean, I'm just fascinated. What is Santa Claus, Schwab? What is he? What does he think about what he's doing? It fascinates me. I'll continue to talk about it. It always will fascinate me. I have a lot more work to do. I don't want to lose everybody, so I'll continue to use the word creep, of course. But I understand a superior being would not feel the need to call Larry Silverfish anymore, or other names like troglodyte. I've not completely gotten over loathing them either. I see their goal of enslaving society. Just a few minutes back, I'm talking about the brain chip, right? And cutting one off from spiritual self. The stakes don't really get any higher than that. Don't forget what I said about 5 minutes ago. Okay, but I see the reality as a whole now. I see it as a wake-up tool with various parts and players, and it's all here for me. This point I'm making here is strengthened 100 times over if you see what I see, or you agree with me on this, that these minions are unlikable on purpose. On purpose. Look at the way certain politicians present themselves, or how many presidents, and it's hated on both sides. Look at the way Nancy Pelosi presents herself. They're all meant to be unlikable, per the way reality itself is designed. They want to be hated, okay? They want to elicit that in people. So the first lesson we should learn is not to give it what it wants. A Jedi does not give the Sith the energy it wants. Go over to BitChute and give it what it wants if you like. I'm done with it. Find an excuse to tune me out. Think of Luke versus Vader in Empire Strikes Back, and how Luke carried himself in Return of the Jedi. In Empire Strikes Back, the training scene with Yoda, he didn't know shit about shit. He's angry. He flew off the handle. He's irrational. Then he finally goes and seeks Vader out. Yoda's like, "You're not ready." Then he's screaming at him, trying to kill him with his lightsaber, and then screaming, "No!" He got his hand cut off where he found out he was his father. He's screaming, "No!" He's a mess. Luke's a mess. He wasn't ready. That's a first-grade truther. Look what Luke became in the next movie, The Empire Strikes Back, the first scenes. Calm. Then later, "I sense good in you, Father. You won't turn me over to your emperor." You know, what did he say at Jabba's palace? "You will take me to Jabba now." "I will take her to Jabba now." "You serve your master well." Calm. Okay, that's what we have to become when dealing with these Jabba creeps. If you're not doing that, you're doing exactly what it wants. You're feeding it energy. It's unlikable on purpose. It wants your hate. It wants your rage. First grade truthers, this reality was beautiful when it was hijacked. It wasn't supposed to be like that. Nope. 100% wrong. It was not hijacked. It was meant to be this way, to facilitate a wake-up. The hijacking, that's an excuse so you can play the victim. Playing the victim removes responsibility. Think of the police lineup, all the bad actors and players, and you could say, "It's not my fault, it's blank's fault." What could we insert into that blank? Thousands of things. "It's not my fault, it's the Trilateral Commission's fault." "It's not my fault, it's Aleister Crowley's fault that started the OTO and the Golden Dawn." "It's not my fault, it's the Council on Foreign Relations' fault." "It's not my fault, it's the Freemasons' fault." "It's not my fault." See, it's all meant to create you a victim. What does that do? It's so you don't see your own power. Once again, comes down to like 2 simple sentences. Now, I hope we didn't lose anybody. I think we maybe lost a few, but this is just simple. There is no debating this. If you want to continue to hate, you're doing exactly what it wants. Have fun serving it.